Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words and become much more articulate. In today's episode, I'm going to be breaking down Pokemon's branding strategy. Did you know that Pokemon is the most valuable media franchise of our generation? And I would even say of all time. It's higher than Star Wars, it's higher than Marvel, Harry Potter, and so much more. Pokemon. Really? I mean, I haven't watched Pokemon in God knows how long. How did they become so powerful? There was this one day when I was in Brooklyn, New York, and I was exploring the different parts of New York, and eventually I got to the Manhattan region. And by the time that I was going to the Manhattan region, there was an army of people just going all in one direction. And as I saw this army of people going towards one direction, they got my curiosity, so I began following them. And once I caught up to them, they eventually all stop around this one area, and they're out with their phones like... And I asked one of the guys, I'm like, hey, what's going on here? He's like, you didn't hear? I was like, no, what's going on? He's like, there's a rare Pokemon here, and we're just trying to catch it. I was like, a Pokemon? What the hell are you talking about? And that's when he starts to explain the game of Pokemon Go. This is basically when you could use your phone in order to catch Pokemon in your day-to-day life. And depending on how rare the Pokemon is, you're capable of increasing in certain scoreboards. I don't know the rules, but I was just astonished because these weren't little kids by any means. Some of the people were in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, frantically trying to catch a Pokemon. And I thought about this moment recently when I found out that Pokemon was one of the most valuable media franchises of all time. And I'm like, my goodness, they've actually been relevant since I was in my 6-year-old stage all the way to my 30s. That's insane. What exactly is it that they're doing in order to be so relevant? See, here's what Pokemon is doing. Number one, they're building a universe and they're inviting you in. Because when you think about it, none of these characters are real. There is not a real Pikachu out there, but human beings, their imagination does not care at all. They're all for the story. And Pokemon is capable of building all these different different creatures. They have relatable characters. So the bottom line is that the story part is there. But you can't just have a story and call it that. You also need different mediums. And this is another thing that Pokemon is very smart in. They have a TV show. They have Pokemon cards. They have video games. And nowadays they have the whole Pokemon Go feature. So they were able to get that story and present it in multitude of different mediums. But just having the medium is not enough either. You need to be able to make the mediums talk. And the more that you can make the mediums talk, the more powerful that your brand becomes. Because I initially got introduced to Pokemon, I believe it was through the show first. And once I fell in love with the show, I saw different kids trading the Pokemon cards. And I was like, wait a minute, I just saw one of these cards on the shows recently. Give me that, kid. And he's like, no, you go buy your own. I'm like, I could buy it? So I ended up buying it. And now I'm over here collecting Pokemon cards. And once I'm over here collecting Pokemon cards, I'm like, what else is possible for them? What other media do they have that I can engage with? And that's when I get introduced to Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Red, and much more. Now onto the video game side. So it's much more likely for a guy like me, who's already been introduced to 3 different mediums, to eventually participate with a new game like Pokemon Go that they unrolled in their later generations. That's why when I was looking at these different individuals that were obsessing over catching this Pokemon, they weren't just the young kids. there were people in their 30s and 40s, which most likely indicated that they too had the same experience like me. They too were in love with the Pokemon story, and they interacted with the story through multiple different mediums. So the recap for today's episode is that in order to build a very powerful brand like Pokemon, it's very imperative that we have the right story. Like, what is that story that resonates with others? Or more importantly, what is the story that resonates with you? Because the guy that created Pokemon, you know how he was initially inspired by it? He had a hobby where he would collect insects. So when he had that hobby of collecting insects, he's like, it'll be pretty cool if rather than insects, it was Pokemon. And it was just a spin-off of that initial idea. So the story predominantly resonated with the founder's interest first. And that's what I normally found to be the most powerful stories. If it resonates with you, then chances are it'll resonate with at least one other person on planet Earth. If it resonates with one person, now you can keep adding multiples of 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. And now the story has been validated. And once the story has been validated, that isn't enough. That's when you want to start unloading the different mediums. So you can get the people that really resonate with the story and allow them to participate in this universe in a very experiential sort of way. With this long-term thinking and branding strategy, that is how Pokemon was capable of becoming the #1 media franchise of all time. Thank you very much for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, and I will catch you next time.